everybody hear me?
No.
No, they cannot hear me, Matt. Now
How
can you
about
hear
now?
me? Hi, guys. Hello. How's everybody doing? Welcome to Midtown Reader. We've yet again pulled an HGTV like we had to do for Rick Wilson at some point, who's in the back, to get you in here. Sorry for those of you we don't have enough chairs for, but we're delighted you're here, so thanks for being with us. I'm very excited tonight to welcome Tim Miller. There's nothing like Republicans talking about Republicans in a negative way to turn out the crowd in Tallahassee.
Not a Republican anymore.
That's
yeah,
right.
Take your point.
Me neither, so we didn't count us up. So I've got a couple of housekeeping items. Just so you know, if you'd like a book, they're available at the register for purchase. Tim is going to be signing here after, so feel free to come up. This group in the first 3 or 4 rows were nice enough to buy a book in advance, and so you get to get your book signed in advance. I think they may have been signed, but you can get them personalized, so we'll let you guys come up first. We'll move the chairs. If you could help us by closing up your chair, there's a little trick to it. You have to put your foot on the back and push it together and then put it up against the wall. That will give us space to do what we need to do. Also, you know, when we have political authors, and we have a lot of different type of authors, but I always ask that the questions and the discussion be very civil, right? So you don't know if you're sitting next to a reader and you're all readers that they necessarily agree with you on everything. And you may not agree with our guest on everything. You can ask him any question. I have. But you need to be civil about it. And if you are not civil, Matt Daly, raise your hand. Matt is our bouncer, and he will take you next door to Izzy's for a beer, which you will pay for. And you will also buy one for him. So with that introduction, let me say this. It is a treat to have you here. Tim Miller, MSNBC analyst, writer for The Bulwark and Rolling Stone, among many others, comms director for Jeb Bush in our fabulous 2016 campaign. RNC spokesperson during Mitt Romney's presidential race. It is a treat to be with you tonight, and I'm proud to call you my friend. So welcome. I'm glad you're here.
I'm so happy. I have a few housekeeping notes, if you don't mind, before we start. Can you all hear me in the back? Yeah? I have a few housekeeping notes. Number one, I was just told by Kaylee that I've eclipsed Rick Wilson for the biggest audience ever here at the Midtown Reader. Sorry, Rick. I get the plaque now. Number two, me and Sally planned this. I planned the date specifically after my LSU Tigers were going to play Florida State, so I could gloat. Whoops. My whole outfit, I had a whole outfit planned. That all went downhill. And so my other just request for everybody is, I just want to. We have this nice exit here. If you see any Ron DeSantis state troopers coming in, I'm running out that way, all right? So I just need you guys to block for me. I don't want to end up in Martha's Vineyard tonight. And I'm just really earnestly, I love Sally Bradshaw so much. This is going to be the highlight of my tour. This is such a treat. Please support the store and buy other people's books besides mine. So let's do it.
So I have to start with a quick story. One of my favorite stories about Tim, and it was not my favorite story during the 2016 campaign, and probably not his either, but we were the two unlucky ones who, after every debate, got to get on the phone with donors and elected officials and spin them about how well Jeb had done in debates. And so we were rocking and rolling until I would say Boulder. And then we got to Boulder, Colorado. Now, remember, we had a candidate who was actually substantive, a thinker. He wanted to have a substantive debate. There were 17 candidates on the stage. That was never going to happen. Donald Trump was sucking all the oxygen out of the room. We had a rough debate. And we were handed talking points by our manager and our press secretary that we'd had a great debate. And Tim and I, being truth tellers, said there is no way we're going to get on a conference call with 500 donors across the country, governors, mayors, other electeds, and say this. So we kind of went off script a little. Within 30 seconds of being honest that we'd had a rough night, it appeared in Politico, Tim Miller and Sally Bradshaw said it wasn't Jeb Bush's best night, which it wasn't. But what I remember most about that night is we were in the Buffs and the Buffaloes, like, dressing room or whatever. We were at University of Colorado, which Christy's very familiar with. And we were in a green room, but we were really in the men's dressing room. We had to get away from the rest of the team. It was very loud. So we went back in the bathroom, and I was sitting on the floor surrounded by urinals. And I thought, thank God it did not leak, that we were in the men's bathroom next to all these urinals. Because it was okay, we said we had a rough night, but can you imagine the field day Politico would have had if they knew where we were making that call?
Oof. I blocked this out. This is like the third Jeb Bush campaign story somebody's told me during the book tour that I was like, honestly, Sally, I do not remember that. But I'm happy that I was there with you.
I remember that you and I were alone with the urinals, and it was a sign that we should have gotten out much sooner than South Carolina.
For sure.
So on that happy note, there are a million Trump books out there.
Yeah.
What's different about yours? Why this book? Why'd you write it?
Thank you. Hey, everybody. Hey, again. So I wanted to write something, and I had an agent call me. My initial actually plan to write a book was going to be a book called Trump is Forever. And it was going to be the notion that after Trump got absolutely schlonged by Joe Biden at the polls, that unfortunately it wasn't going to be a happy ending everybody wanted, and we were still going to be stuck with him and Trumpism. That seemed kind of like a pretty obvious take and like a tweet-length take, not a book, after the election in January 6th. So my agents were like, well, let's go with something else. Let's talk about it. And one of them had an idea that said, why don't you write a book that was like the 10 douchiest grifters in MAGA politics? I was like, they're like, that'd sell a lot of copies. I was like, that'd sell a lot of copies. I was like, Rick would have been #1 on the bestseller list with that book. I was like, I would read Rick writing that. It would have been hilarious. But I just kind of felt like, I don't know about that. I just didn't feel great about having that be the first thing I wrote. And, there was a lot of other Trump books out there, right? Trump's great. Trump's terrible. Everything Trump touches dies. All the behind-the-scenes crazy stuff. Jonathan Ryan. I can't compete with all those people. And so I tried to think about, well, what is something that I don't think people have really done a good job of when I read these Trump books? And it's answering the question of, like, why? Why did people who know better go along with this? Like the Jonathan Martin, like that book is great. Where it's like you're reading it, you're like, oh my God, listen to what Kevin McCarthy's saying behind the scenes, what Lindsey Graham's saying. But because he's a reporter, he's not going to like put Kevin McCarthy on the couch and try to fashion why he thinks Kevin McCarthy's acting the way he is. And so I felt like because I knew these people, and because I was one of these people, I could do that, and I could write a book that would hopefully offer myself a little bit of atonement and a little bit of self-reflection and honesty about the ways that I went along with things that I knew was bad, and hopefully give everybody a real insight into why the people who continue to go along with Trump continue to do so in a way that treated them, except maybe Sean Spicer, as three-dimensional humans that have angels and demons and are like all of us, right? And are trying to and why did they let their darker angels lead them down this path? And so I felt like that would add something to this oeuvre of Trump books that was a little bit different and hopefully give people an honest insight into what has happened in Republican politics the last 6 years, and maybe if I really succeeded, give people who are younger, who are in Republican politics, some like guideposts and lessons about things that they can avoid to not go down that same path.
I think you were a little hard on yourself in this book. I'm going to be honest. I mean, it is a bit of a confessional in some ways. I mean, you grew up Catholic, right?
I did.
And you were determined to focus on your role in all of this, but I think you were tough on yourself. Why did you feel that was important?
Yeah. There's definitely some cradle Catholic themes in the book, and some influence there, some Jesuit influence. My editor at one point said, it's time to take off the hair shirt. So the Catholics, like, we get it. I don't know if I was tough on myself. I think I was on. What I really wanted to do was write a book that just was honest about my own mistakes, so that when I turned the camera onto the other people and explained their mistakes, that I had a credibility with the reader, that it showed that I understood their rationalizations, because maybe I didn't do as bad of things as they did, or do so for such a despicable person and such a dramatic way, but that in my own way, and I made similar rationalizations to the ones that they did. And since you can, a solipsist knows that it's only intentions you can really know are yourselves, I felt like if I really explained my own justifications for going along with some stuff that I knew was bad, like working for anti-gay candidates when I'm a gay person, for just one prime example, then that would, maybe demonstrate that I really do understand why these other people are doing it too.
It was interesting when you talk about the McCain race, because you were involved in that race at a significant level, and looking back on it, sort of hindsight is always 20/20, but there were some stories you shared from McCain on the Trail that to some extent were a window into the future. The birther story, his position on gay marriage. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, there are two things there in the gay marriage thing. The first thing, though, is I was doing another one of these podcasts or something the other day, and they asked, was there a eureka moment for you when you knew this was going to a dark place? And, the answer is really bad, actually. This also makes me look bad. So you say I'm being hard on myself, but I don't think so. And it was I knew then, during the McCain race, I saw it, both with the Palin crowds and the crowds that we would go to see, what they wanted was what we would now call lib-owning. They wanted the trolling. They wanted the insults. They wanted the cruelty, right? That's what the voters wanted. I remember, I went and interviewed some of my old colleagues just to make sure I wasn't distorting that memory in my head. And, one woman, she said to me, she said, I remember going home and crying because I was on the phone calling supporters, and they were mad at McCain about the immigration thing, and they were all like, we just tell them, we got to send these people, just put them on a bus and send them back to Mexico, and who cares about, what happens? And over and over again, people said that to her. And so, when McCain loses, I felt like I really did see in 2008 that we're on a trajectory to Palin's party, not McCain's party, right? And yet continue to go along with it. So I thought that was important to kind of get at the first person embryos of this. The gay thing I wanted to talk about because it just made me feel so bad about myself when I went back and read this interview. Because it was I'm trying to understand, okay, how do these people, they know Trump is bad, how do they go along, why do they keep going along with it? And I answered the question in this interview with The Advocate. The Advocate's the gay magazine in D.C. And I was, I think, the most visible, basically. Melman didn't come out until after he had retired. So I was kind of the most visible gay Republican staffer. And so she was interested in me, so she wanted to do an interview, and she asked me about this McCain moment where he says to Chris Matthews, if the gays want to have a ceremony or whatever, that's fine with me. And then his advisor during commercial break comes off stage, and it's you just endorsed gay marriage, in 2007. That's not going to work in the Iowa caucus. So then the next question is about ethanol, and he backtracks and is well, if they want to have a little garden party or whatever, that's fine. But gay marriage, I'm not for gay marriage. Marriage is between a man and a woman. And the reporter said, what did you think? How did you feel when you were watching that? I said, I was mad. She was like, you were mad that he was against gay marriage? And I was like, no, I was mad that he screwed up. I was mad that he screwed up. I wanted to win. I wanted to win. And I was working for McCain, and you couldn't have won a Republican primary being for gay marriage in 2007. And just how cynical that was. To go back and read that explanation, I think is a window into how that mindset of this campaign game, where campaign game above everything, can be so corrupting.
So were we just naive with the Republican audit and thinking there was a path? Tim and I worked together when he was at the RNC, and I was one of the volunteer co-chairs of an audit of the Romney loss in 2012, and we really made an effort to try to say we should be a more welcoming party and we should be a more diverse party, and we thought we were on the right track, and then nothing happened.
I think we were a little bit naive, and there was a little bit of wish casting. I do think that was earnest, right? Throughout this book, there are examples of times where I'm acting cynical and earnest, and we all thought that was the right thing. That's the interesting thing. I used the people in the autopsy as kind of a conceit in the book because everyone in the room agreed, right? Everybody, no matter, we all went different directions, and Reince ended up being his chief of staff, and Spicer's his spokesperson, and Ari is now a MAGA cable TV troll for some reason, working for the Saudis, and Sally has a Speak Truth tattoo and has a bookstore, right? So Sally made the right call. So okay, But we all agreed. There wasn't like this in the meetings, for on the email chains. You sent me some of your emails. I went back and looked. There wasn't like a big disagreement over, we should know this isn't the right path. Everybody agreed it was the right path. So, like when I look back at it, I think that there were two, kind of fundamental mistakes of that, and it was that we thought that that the right thing to do. It also kind of flattered our own biases, right? Like it did, and it shouldn't have been surprising that a bunch of people who are urban, college-educated Republicans in a room would have been like, the party should be nicer to minorities, and that's all good stuff. But that was the obvious suggestion we should have made, that we would have made. And I do think that in retrospect, when I look back on it, I'm like, we didn't spend a lot of effort. Everyone talked to people. There was a lot of effort put into it, but there was not a lot of consideration, was what I'm looking for, given to. Actually, maybe the party should have reflected more on the wars, right, and the economic hollowing out of some of these communities, right, and maybe if the recommendations had reflected that, like somebody could have filled this gap that would have been offered a more. I don't know, that would have been a Tim Miller party. I don't want to speak for you, but like offered a more earnest kind of economic populist path, and like that was what we didn't do. And I think that part of that is that it just reflected how separate we were from the voters, like culturally, right? And I think that hoping that we could drag them into what we wanted was wishful thinking.
Yeah,
I think.
obviously. So, Tim, if you haven't read the book yet, Tim does a really interesting thing, which is different from a lot of the Trump books that have been produced in the last, cycle. He goes through colleagues of ours, and he breaks out their motivations. And I was sort of fascinated as to how you framed different people in different categories, the enablers, the nerd-revenging team player, the strivers, cartel-cashing, team-playing tribalist trolls, a demonizer, and then ultimately the never-Trumpers. There are a few in here tonight. Can you talk a little bit about that process? Because you took on some friends, and you probably didn't make that decision lightly.
No, so... It was kind of hard because I wanted to think about a structure that would help people understand, right? Like and humans are complicated, right? So like our motivations are complicated, and so I say that is that a lot of people are a little bit of category A and a little bit of category C, right? But it's like, what were the main drivers of this? And I was trying to think about, okay, well, how can I do this? I had a bunch of drafts about a bunch of different people, famous people, obvious people. Like for a while, I thought I might do Mike Pence. And some other Kelly Loeffler in Purdue, and that hit the cutting room floor because I was like, I really want to. Actually, the right thing to do is focus on people I know, okay? Because then I can better have the credibility to explain their rationalizations. Okay, so then the next question is, which people I know do I pick, right? And I felt like because I'm mean in the book, but it's not intentionally mean, right? And so I felt like it would be mean to just be like
honest.
Yeah, just be like pick somebody out of the air and pick that person. And so I used two rules. It was basically, did they work on that autopsy, right, or were they willing to come talk to me about it? And then I made one special exception for Josh Holmes. Sorry, Josh. But besides that, it was the autopsy people and the people who chose to interview with me. And I felt like, because, to what I just said about how we were all in the same room, like I felt like that was the cleanest way to say, look, we have evidence on paper that these people didn't want to go this route, right? And so why did they go the route that they did? And it really is kind of an interesting cast of characters. And the idea that Elise, ends up in Congress, and that's the chief of staff, the spokesperson, and it wasn't just random people in the Trump, it's very influential people. So that was basically how it came about.
I thought one category was particularly interesting, which I guess it should have hit me sooner, but just sort of the celebrity watcher, the folks who just at the end of the day, it's not that they necessarily, wanted to rise up the food chain and have a big title or do whatever, but they were just taken by Trump's celebrity, which is sort of fascinating.
Yeah, and their own kind of, right? And this was something when I was doing the Spicer bit, and I was interviewing obviously Sean didn't talk to me. I tried a few times. I've heard he didn't like his portrayal. I don't. But I was I remember interviewing one of the guys that worked for him at the White House. Just kind of, and the guy's like, Tim, I don't think you understand. we'd go to the rallies. And Spicer is very literally kind of like a mini Trump in the sense of he's getting all the selfies with people. And, I think one thing that I think is an interesting insight into Sean is that everyone thought this SNL thing he would be very mortified by. But it's like, no, he loved it. It's like they're talking about me on SNL, right? He wasn't mortified by that. He then goes and wears like a lime green dress on a dancing show, right? So it's not hard just to figure out what this person's motivation is. But all the way down the scale from Sean, like there are a bunch of people in D.C. that kind of have become, and it's another thing that I can see in myself sometimes. You get enamored with the attention, right? You get enamored with like the fact that there's this. You're not a Hollywood actor, right? But it's something. Your friends are talking about you back home. You're gaining followers on social media. Somebody stops you on the street. The interns are excited to meet you when you walk in.
Yeah,
like
the prom for nerds.
Yeah, prom for nerds, right?
Yeah.
All that stuff can really get addictive and intoxicating. And I think that there's a certain class. I'm sure we can think of a spokesperson for a certain governor here that would fit in this class. Like people start to love that. Really, this is kind of the sad thing about all these categories, is it ended up being much. I knew it was going to be banal and stupid, but it ended up even being more stupid and banal than I kind of expected.
The rationalization.
Yeah,
it was really kind of
right?
like, really?
Yeah, like there were some very complex, like some people really thought about, justified it and, came up with all these sorts of fancy things, but most people were just kind of fell back on, I really like to feel important. I really like the attention. It's really fun to make fun of liberals, right? Like really banal stuff.
So is a two-party system important, part one to my question, and two, can you see a situation where Republicans can recover?
Well, Republicans are never coming back to you, Sally, so you can just kind of let that pipe dream go.
I like being in a bookstore much more than being in politics.
George H.W. Bush is not walking through that door anytime soon. Here's the thing. I don't know. This is my I still am a Republican, vestigially. So, we have our old jokes. There's an old joke we made fun of about the liberals that, real Marxism has never been tried, right? Like all the Marxists. So, like, if we just did real Marxism, it would work this time. It's like, okay, buddy. I feel like that about this next suggestion I'm about to make, which is, I think that in theory, like a more earnest conservative populism could work in theory, right? Which is a notion of, I want to address the legitimate grievances that the party-based people have, right? Because they do have some legitimate grievances. Like there's some legitimate grievances about the war, about the economic situation, particularly in rural America. Like there are legitimate things to be aggrieved about, and make the illegitimate grievances, the conspiracy theories, the racism, kind of either not part of the deal or very secondary, right? Like, could that work? Could somebody try to do that? Because, like, that, I think, is the only path back for the party, right? If the party is never going back to classical liberalism, but, like, maybe it could go to, something that I wouldn't like, but like a conservative populism that doesn't have the conspiracy and the racist stuff. The problem with that is the people kind of want the conspiracy and the racist stuff, And like J.D. Vance is my prime example of this, right? Did he come to your bookstore? This was before the times. But panelist J.D. Vance was this, right? He was like, it's this kind of populist, like we need to change the policies to care more about the people in these forgotten communities. Okay, then Senate candidate J.D. Vance is like, not so sure about the vaccines, and that election was probably stolen, and I want to make fun of the MSNBC. So, why did he change? Well, it's because the voters wanted trolly J.D. Vance. Like they didn't want panelist J.D. Vance. So that makes me wonder. I don't know. That's the dark
not in our
part.
lifetime.
That's the dark part. I think that's where we get to. Maybe it's not fixable.
So I thought it was interesting. I heard you talking about whether a Trump could happen to the Democrat Party because there are definitely extremes in both parties that are creating problems in terms of us, solving problems.
Yeah.
But you said unlikely. Why?
I don't think so. Well, maybe at some time, right? I think that if you read the book, there are certainly some elements of the book where you're like, I can see this in the Democrats, right? Like the feeding people rage juice. Like there's certain things about that are. But there's some pretty big differences in the party. And the main thing is the people that make them up, right? The people that make up the party. The Democratic Party is much more diverse. in every way, right? Racially diverse, the backgrounds, genders, and so that's a good thing, right? And so diversity really is a strength, right? Because it's like Donald Trump, had his base, the core part of the Republican Party, the white working class kind of culturally conservative base, and so he only had to win over like a small percentage of like the Chamber of Commerce people, right? But for a Democrat, somebody would have to come out of one of those various wings, and the other ones would be a check on it a little bit. The other thing is that we're breaking up along education lines, and this is happening everywhere in the world. And this is not to say that like college-educated people can't be tricked by a conspiracist or a charlatan. Like there are plenty of stupid people that went to the Ivy League. Some of them worked for Trump. But like as a general,
Some are our governor.
So okay.
I didn't say that.
So as a general matter, though, that is like a protection, right? So the Democrat coalition just has all these protections, particularly older black voters, now suburban, kind of moms and dads that have trended more towards the Democratic side. These voting blocks are a guard against and you're seeing it in the primaries, right? Like everyone under my old Republican friends are the ones who are still hanging on to the party, but who agree with me on Trump. They're always like, well, the Democrats are crazy too. I'm like, look who's winning the primaries. Like in the Democrats, it's mostly Tim Ryan, Eric Adams was the primary in New York. They just threw out the crazy Chesa Boudin in San Francisco, right? They just threw out Chesa Boudin. And like in the Republican side, it's like a general that thinks that Bill Gates is implanting chips into us just won the New Hampshire Senate primary last night, okay, over Chuck Morse, a Jeb Bush supporter, like a Jeb Bush endorsee, kind of like a normal Republican. So like the evidence is right there. So anyway, so it doesn't mean to say that never could that happen on the Democratic side, but I think that there's a lot of parts of the Democratic base that really protects against it.
Let's go to some audience questions.
Okay, there's a prominent LGBTQ leader in Florida who has said of gay Republicans that you can't hate yourself enough for them to love you. What do you say? Sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry. Work me through that. You can't hate yourself enough for them to love you? Okay.
What do you say to the gay staffers and leaders who refer to serving Ron DeSantis, which they should have also their eyes set on the White House?
It's not fucking worth it. That's what I would say to them. Like, you're gonna hate yourself. Like, it's just the honest answer. You're gonna hate yourself. I don't, like, here's the thing. My rationalizations for it were really genuine in the sense of, like, I'd convinced myself they were true. They're genuine in that sense that they're real. Like, in 08, I'm like, well, Obama wasn't for gay marriage even, so who cares, right? It's kind of the same. But, like, that wasn't really true, right? I mean, Obama was for civil unions, and, like, they were moving in the right direction, right? And so you come up, you're like, or I like John McCain more on this, that, and the other issue. Like, that was true. Like, so you convince yourself of this. But, like, at the end of the day, like your sexuality, if you're gay, is just such a core part of your identity, and it ends up being the most important things in your life if you do find someone that hates themselves enough to love you. And so that you look back on it and just say it's not, the job of whatever Treasury spokesperson for the Ron DeSantis administration is not worth your adoptive gay kid hating you 20 years from now. It's just not. And the jobs aren't that great. I understand it. I get why, the allure of it. But man, just what the DeSantis people are doing, and there's a lot of folks that try to down talk the don't say gay thing or undermine it, and this one has really gotten under my skin a lot because it's purposely written to be cruel and to make it very hard for teachers and kids and families like mine to know what the right thing to do is, right? And it's smartly crafted that way. And so, like, their defense, like, they self-justify it by being like, the bill doesn't say you can't not, have two Tim and Tylers, and, that Toulouse can't make a Valentine's card to their dads. But it might, right? Like, it might. And so all it takes is one teacher that says, I don't think you should do that, or one, I've stopped saying Karens, I feel bad for Karen, but one, Julia, one Steve, to call and complain to the school, and that stuff is really pernicious, and It's not worth it.
Next question.
Hey, Tim. I found your story about the Greg Gutfeld party in the book very evocative. And
So did you go to any Greg Gutfeld parties at the Breitbart Embassy?
I did not.
This is why I was meaner to myself than you are to yourself. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
It's evocative. At that time, I was waking up at 3 a.m. watching Red Eye with Gutfeld and Breitbart. And, thinking back, that show, and sort of the nihilism of that show, it's funny, really entertaining. But I think it sowed some seeds to what we're seeing today. Question, though, is Andrew Breitbart. I always wonder, if he had not passed away, where do you think he would be right now as far as the Trump administration?
Leading the charge, leading the charge, front of the line. Yeah, Gutfeld's book, I didn't know, so when I was going back, I wanted to talk about the Breitbart Embassy. People haven't read the book. There's this house on Capitol Hill where the Breitbart people all meet. It's an office. Steve Bannon would sleep there, apparently. I don't know. And they would throw parties. And the more establishment Republicans like me would go to the parties to kind of network, and they would even invite mainstream reporters there because they pretend to hate the mainstream reporters, but they actually really just are jealous of them. And so, they would have these parties, and I would go as a networking thing, and I wanted to write about it to sort of show how corrupt and incestuous the whole thing is, right? Like that the campaign side, and these guys pretend like they're anti-establishment, but it's all the funders were all the same. So I wrote about that, and I thought the Breitbart Embassy is a good kind of scene for that. But so when I went back, I was like, when was the first time I went? I was like, I think it was for that Gutfeld party, and I found an old Washington Examiner thing about the party, and his book for that party, his book was called The Joy of Hate. So when you say should I have seen it coming? It's like The Joy of Hate was the book. I mean, that's pretty close to the cruelty is the point. It's not too far off. And so, yeah, I really do think that that crowd was, they were more, it was more trolly. And like you're saying, it was more nihilist. Like the category I have for this is this LOL, nothing matters. Like it was more that, like we just want we just want to drink liberal tears or whatever, than it was kind of a genuine, anti-immigrant sentiment. There are some within the Breitbart world, but like the Gutfeld category, it was that. And I think that was such an important part of Trumpism, right? Like people want to focus on, for good reason, like the child separation and the really evil and cruel stuff, but like the comedy, making fun of, trolly stuff is what softened the ground for the darker stuff for a lot of people. And I see, and to me, I think this is actually the most pernicious element of it all with the Washington class. I mean, obviously, it's not as pernicious as like child separation, but with the Washington class, because I see this in the 20-something Republican staffers. They're all that now. It's all that. None of them believe any of this stuff, and they've all just bought into the Gutfeld, comfortably smug, Andrew Breitbart, like this is all fun troll game, and we just want like liberals to cry. And those people are necessary for all the evil stuff to happen.
Next question.
Yeah, this is not an uplifting thing. You can't you can't ask me about the LSU FSU game if we just need a little break. Please.
Yes. Vonnegut said, we tell ourselves lies so we can live.
Yeah.
And I guess that's happening around the world now. What do you make of the Republicans' hatred of the legacy media? Where did that come from?
Well, the media can be a little mean. I don't think the legacy media has covered itself in glory lately, and so some of that stuff has brought about themselves. And I think some of it is this cultural gap that is real. I don't think that the media is fake in the way that they're saying, or the enemy of the people in the way they're saying, but there is the type of person that wants to go write for the New York Times or go work for CNN is like culturally very separate from the type of person that is a Republican primary voter. And so like that breeds contempt. And this is a long time coming. This stuff goes all the way back to, it probably goes back further than this, but at least Spiro Agnew. I don't know, did anybody listen to Rachel Maddow, Spiro Agnew podcast? It's really good. I don't really love Rachel Maddow that much, but this one was really good. I knew the basics about Spiro Agnew, but I hadn't gone deep. There is a lot of Trumpist stuff there. Like there was a lot of echoes of what was to come, and he was very much an anti. So that this stuff is going from him all the way through Rush, but it's a lot about the culture. The cultural resentment is really what underlines it, and Trump just capitalized on that and supercharged it.
Good question, Marianne.
Thank you.
Okay, who's next?
What does it say about America that tens of millions of Americans still support Trump despite all that's happening?
Not great things. It makes me sad. It does make me sad. It really, I was genuinely sad from November the 7th to November the 11th. I was a sad person for a few days for that reason, because it's just like so many people had disappointed you, and like this thing. That one of the most disappointing things about all of this is when we were in the room, like, well, you were in the room for Dole. I was too young, but I was watching on TV when Dole was. Sorry about that. It wasn't that long ago. I didn't say you were in the room for Spiro Agnew. I said Bob Dole.
And I hired you?
When he's like, if you're a racist or a bigot, the doors are in the back, right? And when they were doing the Shining City on the Hill stuff, I was sitting there clapping because I was like, yeah, I like this. This is good. And to come to find out that everybody else was kind of clapping just because whatever, right? They would have clapped if they would have been saying, we're a dark hole in the ground. It's not a. So that was upsetting. That was disappointing, and I don't think it says good things about the country. I will say this though, and I try to do this at every stop, so I'm glad you asked. Like, the only way out of this is through persuasion and through like trying to drag some people away from the darkness, right? And so the book is very mean to Sean Spicer and to the people that know better, and John Holmes and all these assholes who know better and are contributing to a very serious threat to our democracy. And I don't brook any, I don't think they deserve any grace. Like, your friend that voted for Donald Trump, though, like, kind of does. Not every person. There are mean people out there. There are bad people. But, like, we can't just – the way out of this is not to just be like all of those people are irredeemable, because they aren't, right? Like, there are some people that are gettable, that are still – that you can see it when you talk to people and go out and hear, Republican voters against Trump, which I did in 2020, was, like, premised on this idea that there were some people that voted for him last time and changed their mind, right? And so – and those videos were, like, very moving to me. It was kind of like a AA meeting type of thing, and people, like, coming out, getting away from it. So, I think that it's okay to be sad about it and to think that it doesn't say great things about the country, but, they're still our country. They're still our fellow countrymen.
So is there any possibility of a third party as a result of what's happening, or you think that's unlikely?
No. Well, there is a possibility of a third party, but I'm about to describe it to you. You guys ready? We'll see if you like it. How do you like the idea of like Joe Rogan and the Barstool guy getting together on a ticket? That might work. Okay, that might work. There is, the underserved quadrant of people is like that, right? It's sort of culturally against the, whatever you want to call it, the elite establishment democratic view of things, but not really socially conservative in like a religious way. So they would have been, against the Roe thing, right? Like you could draw up a type of, kind of populist, contrarian third way that once you describe that to people that want a third party, they're like, no, that's not what I mean. That's not what I mean. I want somebody that does the autopsy. I want an autopsy third party.
The Christy Todd Whitman, that's not going to work.
Oh, my God.
Moderate.
Those people are all Joe Biden. I just want to say this with love, okay? If everyone in your group voted for Joe Biden, you are not a splinter third party. You are a wing of the Joe Biden coalition. There's an existing party for you, the Democratic Party. You might not want to say you're a Democrat because you've been a Republican your whole life, and that's tied into your identity, and it makes you feel icky to say you're a Democrat. I get it. I had to deal with it. I came out of the closet. I've done this twice now. Changing your identity is hard. You're a Democrat. You're a Democrat. For all you can call yourself whatever you want, but you're a Democrat. And so that is the problem. All those third-party things it's people who are already on the same team, like trying to divide themselves. So the only way to get to a third party that undermines Trump is you have to get – I did an article about this, which you obviously didn't read or you wouldn't ask that question. The Perot got, I'm going from memory, I think 16% from each party. It was like 16 or 18% from each party, and he didn't win any states, right? So it's like you got to get a quarter of each party. So, maybe 4% of the Trump people are kind of the types of people that you imagine you want to have on your side. They're like, they know better, and they just like tax cuts and babies so much that they couldn't bring themselves to do it, but they're nice people otherwise, and they believe in climate change. That's like 4%. So the 25%, once you get to the person who's like 25% into the Trump tech, they got the hat, you know, they watch Tucker. Like, what is the party that's going to have that person in it and Christine Todd Whitman? No, there is, you know, so it's just, sorry, it's not going to happen.
That's so uplifting.
What do you think about that, Rick?
In the back. We got time for 2 more.
I like Joe
so.
Rogan. I don't think he's fine.
And I grew up in New York too in the 60s and 70s and the 80s. And in New York, Donald Trump was known for being the dishonest and immoral, unethical slug.
Yep.
And they showed it in their votes. They didn't vote for him. They won't vote for this thing for him. But I really would love to hear an explanation of how Donald Trump is able to win the overwhelming support of evangelical Christians.
He hates the people they hate is the shortest answer of it, and or he's good at pretending that he hates the people they hate. He might actually be jealous of them and want to be them, but he's good at pretending he hates the people that they hate is the main thing. And here's the other thing: this isn't every the last group to fall. So when we did the 2016 primary, Rick will remember this. The last group to fall into Trump's clutches within the Republican primary base was like a once or more a week churchgoer, right? Like your actual very, sincerely religious churchgoer, and so those people were reluctant about it, and they were the last kind of group to fall. You're kind of like culturally evangelical person. The real truth is that most of them don't actually just care that much about the doctrine. I mean, look at this DeSantis thing with Martha's Vineyard. It's like he's going on. It's like we're putting the armor of God on. It's like send refugees on an airplane. It's just so contrary to the faith, and it's just because the people that are attracted to it, it's more of a cultural signifier than it is a genuine, earnest thing. And so that is true, and that was never me. That was never my world, so I didn't have to be disappointed by that. But it's similar to the Tea Party thing. I look back at the Tea Party, and what I think we've learned is that, like, the Tea Party people actually didn't care about government spending at all, right? Like, it was just a vehicle to express their hatred of the black president and the cultural elites that they were mad about, right? And so had Obama done something else, the Tea Party people would have been, anti-environment, rallies or whatever. It could have been whatever. And I think that's just true about the not every. I don't want to impugn every evangelical, but like this core version of the cultural evangelical. The particulars of the faith is not what's drawing them to it, unfortunately.
One last question, Matt.
And that guy in the back, 2 questions.
Okay,
He's telling
2
me that twice.
questions.
I'll give fast
I'm
answers.
sorry.
Quick.
He gets
Yeah.
to choose.
If the Senate doesn't go Republican this session,
Yeah.
this election, I suspect that McConnell will probably resign because he's already figured out he's changed the law in Kentucky, so the governor doesn't
Yeah.
pick his successor. Who's likely to be the voice of the Senate for the Republicans?
Yeah, the Senate is like slower in this turnover, right? Because it's a 6-year cycle. So like there isn't really a natural, you can see that McConnell is trying to groom like Thune, right, or Cornyn. But it's just like, that's not a fit. Those guys aren't a fit for where the party is, right? So I wouldn't be, there could potentially, so when Paul Ryan ends up becoming speaker, right, already, even the day he took the job, he was already out of step with the caucus, right? But it was like there wasn't a better answer, right? So that was just he's just a placeholder till we get whatever Speaker Jim Jordan here in 2 years or whatever, who actually represents the caucus. And so I think that's probably that. You get like a placeholder. I'm not convinced that the Democrats are going to win the Senate. I'm sorry, this is all bad news. I'm not convinced that that's going to happen anyway. I think that it's a lot closer than your average pundit is saying, and I think it'd be very easy to see that Republicans have a 51-seat Senate majority. Ask me one where I can give something nice.
I'm not sure I can do that.
Okay.
I'll try. Seeing as, although you just kind of undermined this, that Trump's electoral prospects seem to be fading, his candidates are underperforming. He's lost one general election. He was strong with the base, but he'll almost certainly, I will bet a lot of money on this. Certain to lose another general election if he even makes it that far. But watching kind of politics more broadly,
it's just hard to, from a more Republican or discordant values. To what degree is this style of politics here to stay long
Yeah.
beyond Trump, even in his opposition? Or is there any
Yeah.
back to the model?
No, I don't think. Well, I agree with some of what you said and disagree with some. I don't think that to the last question, I don't think that the genie is going back in the bottle. I think that this type of politics is a lot. There's a lot of other factors which we haven't talked about tonight, but the media and the incentives and the online fundraising. There are a lot of incentives that are driving this type of politics. So no, I don't think that the genie's going back in the bottle. I don't think that the Democrats though are really using very Trumpist strategies. I don't, I do reject that, and I think that in general, again speaking, I just don't think your analysis of what's happening in the primaries are right. Like the Trumpist candidates are winning more primaries than they're not, and when Trump's endorsed candidate loses, the person that wins isn't like Sally. It's like somebody that's like, I love Donald Trump, and I wish he would endorse me, and I did everything I could to get him to endorse me, and he's great. Like,
What I mean is they're not generally marginal candidates. Like Trump won a general election.
Oh yeah. Well, we'll see. I don't know. I mean, J.D. Vance is going to probably win, and I don't know that I agree with that. I'm pretty concerned about some of these governors. I hope you're right. We'll see. I'm concerned about some of these governors' races very, very sincerely. And DeSantis is doing just fine. So I don't think so. I think that the Democrats, there are some that obviously the tactics of politics are going to continue the way they are, but the Democrats have a little bit of a different incentive structure to keep their voters happy. And so I don't think that they're going to go down that path. I appreciate you all so much. This has been so fun. We'll do one more. Fine, one more. Make it a good one. Really, this is the last one, though. Really, this is the last one.
Thank you. I'm sorry. So first of all, your book gave me hope, and I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. I don't hear a lot of that, so thank you.
One thing that stood out for me in your book is the power of the influence of social media on
Yeah.
politics. And as a driver, for some of this, you talked about this as a media as a
Yeah.
driver. And so I'm wondering, how do we do you have any plans or strategies? How do we deal with that when we're all just, inundated with social media?
Yeah, no, I don't. It's very challenging. I mean, I think that there are a lot of things that people are trying to do, and again, I'm worried again that this is going to bifurcate right along at college education lines. Again, that's just not to say that college people are better, but like the types of news and the types of information that somebody that goes to college and is hyper engaged is going to get, they're going to be drawn to things like the Bulwark, or they'll read the Atlantic, or they'll read longer form things. Like they will engage with more. Like less engaged people into politics, and people who are more in it for like the sport of it, like they're just going to be getting whatever Let's Go Brandon meme is just dumped into their Facebook feed, right? And so like, how do you get those people to start to engage? Back in the old days, like they would still watch Tom Brokaw at night or whatever, but they're not now, right? Like now they're just in a surround sound of the social media and of the memes. And how do you break that up? I really don't know. Like I'm doing my best I try really hard with the Snapchat show I do, because it's only teens, to like throw some bones to the conservative teens out there from time to time so they keep watching it, because I think that it's really important that we have different vehicles for getting news to younger people that could be persuaded down the Trumpy path. But that's just one. I only have 100,000 viewers, pretty good, but not. There's 330 million people in the country. So a lot of the other platforms, like TikTok and stuff, are even taking us to a worse place. So thank you for that uplifting final question. Go Noles! I will be rooting for the Noles the rest of the year. I'm pulling for it. That's a great quarterback you got, and support this store. I love this. I love y'all.
So to me, the most important thing about your book is you talk about the line we won't cross, and people needing to find that line.
Yeah.
And there are not a lot of Trump books that have done that. So thank you for drawing that distinction and being here.
Thank you so
And
much,
I have to
Sally.
give a shout out to Kaylee Wilson, our events director, who helped pull this off. And the entire Midtown Reader team. And so what we're going to do is give us just a second to get Tim set up here to sign, and then we're going to let the first, Kaylee,